Great. Board members, we got an echo, we're good. So the item before you today is the kind of policy objectives and identifying as a board some of those general policy objectives we have as an agency. So historically in my career, we've done a lot of different regulatory actions as well as legislative actions. Oftentimes those are handled by staff. I think there's in the system that we're operating here today, there's a lot of different moving parts. So I think it's a great opportunity for us as a board and a group to kind of identify some general policy directions that give staff recommendations on how we proceed. So basically, and when I say that policy objections and regulatory engagements, these are opportunities where we see a piece of legislation that might be either conflicts with our roles and goals, or we see a piece of legislation that supports our roles and goals. The choice of, and a regulatory operations, so whether it be the PUC or the CEC or any other regulatory body who might be regulating our operation and or regulating or supporting potential competitors' operations, that we have a general policy as it relates to a board that we can have that conversation, or you can identify to us what we're going to do. And then also secondary to this is a strategy for notifying board of actions that staff may take. And I think what's key is this kind of sets the groundwork for us to operate, because we don't want to bring every piece of legislation that might come forward or every person who needs a letter of recommendation or some level of support or opposition to a regulatory, but we want to have a strategy from your board to give us direction as well. And then prior to submitting any of those legislative supports or opposals or opposition, that we have a process to notify you guys of, here, this is what we're doing, just a heads up in case there are concerns. Now, of course, we follow Brown Act, so we can't take consensus, but at least there's a notification process for you guys as well as it relates to what we're doing. So if there are constituencies out there that you each hold individually, that you can address those concerns as they come into you, so it's not unknown to you. So basically, we've kind of set out a kind of a policy platform on this, and I think when you look at these, they're very general in nature. So I think, but I think what's important here is kind of a robust conversation from you guys today to kind of give us feedback on where you see it and see some concerns and some opportunities, and then we can listen and hear those feedbacks and kind of understand that as well. But we've identified policy objectives. We've got 7 policy objectives. One is a strong and competitive markets. So I think what's key when we talk about market conditions, we are an agency that's within a open market, right? So although we're unregulated from a nature of a municipal utility, there are opportunities to be regulated, whether that be CEC rules, other, not necessarily the PUC, but some other agencies that might do that. So we would take positions that protect our competitiveness in the marketplace. And I think that's key as it relates to what we as an operation do. And remember, it's not just about us, it's about our membership. Right, so our member agencies who are maybe either buying our fuel or buying our electricity, whatever that looks like, we want to remain competitive for their operation as well. So we have a responsibility not only to us, but also our membership to make sure we're strong in competitive markets. And when I say competitive, that we're equal playing fields, right? That there isn't advantages to others that may not be to us as well. So when we see things to support or oppose, that's what we believe. Local control is very important to us, right? As a municipal utility, we're different than many in the sense that, we have certain autonomy as a municipal utility that the state constitution grants us, and we want to protect that not I want to say at all costs. You never know what we've got going on, but that we take the opportunity to use local control as our guiding principle. Obviously, our member agencies will also be local agencies that want to protect their autonomy and authority to do and transact what they're doing. So I think that's going to be a key component of our policy directions. Vertical collaboration, promoting collaboration with regional, state, and federal governments and private partners to advance policies and funding opportunities that accelerate hydrogen infrastructure development. Now, it's a very broad opportunity, but we're also, as much as we're in a regional market and an ecosystem, we want to see that ecosystem be healthy. And I think that's key in the policy directions that we want to give, is that rising tide raises all boats. So I think it's very important that we be part of the solution in that process, as well as protecting ourselves, being a protection role. We also need to be a collaborative role and an expansion role, as long as those markets are competitive. So there's, when you look at these policy frameworks, sometimes they're, conflicting, but you got to balance out the regional and collaborative effort with our competitiveness in the marketplace as well. So it's a balance in that policy framework. Stakeholder.
The
Go ahead.
title vertical collaboration is one that's not familiar to me and seems unusual
Right.
because we want to collaborate horizontally too, I guess.
Correct. Right.
But okay, so I'm not quite sure why use the term vertical.
Okay, fair enough. Let me try to explain.
Okay.
So horizontally, when you think of vertical in the framework of a devolution from a governmental perspective,
Okay.
we see federal government above us,
Federal, then
state
state,
government,
then
yeah,
local.
county. In
Okay.
theory, some people
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that we're a subsidiary of the county,
Okay.
and then state,
Okay, then.
and then local. So
Yeah.
laterally, we got local agencies, right? We're generally working together, right? These are
Okay.
cities, transit agencies that are cities. That's kind of the frame. That's kind of the level in which we are. When we talk about vertical, we're talking about those agencies that are above us, right? Is how do we engage, encourage partnership with the governor's office or the CEC or other agencies that we're dealing with, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And horizontal collaboration, I think, is just it's who we are, right? That's the level we stay at.
Yeah, but I also think about there are other things like private entities that we'd like to collaborate with and to become part of our team and things like that, or hire and stuff, collaborate with.
Yeah.
Anyways, and they're not above us,
Right. Fair
not
enough.
below us.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
we can put some qualifying
Okay.
statement on there, but I understand absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was meant to exclude them. This is
Okay.
more on the regulatory and policy side. So
Yeah.
the private sector is partners, but I
Yeah.
don't know that they would be
Okay.
regulatory agencies.
Okay,
But
thanks.
understood. Stakeholder engagement in advancing the key stakeholder engagement to advance collaborative efforts or policy and regional investments. So I think maybe this is where, when we're talking about stakeholders,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
the broader
stakeholders
group
probably.
of stakeholders where we're handling that. Technology advancement and adoption. This is we will and continue to do encouraging innovation, development, and equitable access to hydrogen technologies to ensure broad community and economic benefits. These are we're dealing with some now as it relates to some of the fire safety issues where we're taking a very positive look at it from a statewide perspective of saying if we all benefit from whether it be new technology, new processes that advance the efforts of the hydrogen adoption. Jobs and workforce development, obviously very, very keen to Ernesto and his work he's doing, but supporting policies and project frameworks that create jobs and increase a pool of skilled hydrogen workforce and scale to new hydrogen. I think that's a general policy that we would support. So if those opportunities, and an example of how that would work, if there was a piece of legislation that would come forward that says, that we support job workforce development, or there's a training center that's getting funded or something like that, that's something that I could say as CEO, write a letter of support and identify that fits within all of our board meetings, and then have a process to notify you that I did that. So that doesn't require us to come back and say, hey, do you guys want to support job creation, right? We know you want to support job creation.
Yeah.
Hydrogen supply and energy diversity, supporting an increased supply of new domestic hydrogen and energy, and increasing energy diversity in California, the renewable hydrogen production sites and delivered logistics and infrastructure. And this is a general, obviously, support of what we're doing on a general basis, right? We're trying to build new hydrogen, specifically green hydrogen assets, and aggregation of demand so those hydrogen assets have a viable offtake. So that's generally where we're at. If you have any comments or concerns or questions, we would add those. But I think what's key to the follow-up is, I'm trying to scroll my thing down here. What's key to the follow-up is how we notify you, right? And I think that's key, how we notify you. And oftentimes the public's notified because these are public processes, whether it be legislative or regulatory, but then also notifying you guys that it's happening, which is a very important part of that process. We're not putting that in this policy necessarily, but we'll be doing an internal working on operations so that we have a system in which to notify you of actions that we have suggested or recommended, and then go from that. Again, we're under the Brown Act, so I can feel Allison even though she's online. I will not be notifying you to get consensus. I will be notifying you guys just as a notification. So we want to make sure we're clear on that as well. And then we always have, in many of these cases, we always have opportunities to pull back and amend and change. There's no fatal effort that's going to be, a letter's not going to hurt anybody. And we have the opportunity to change that if there is something that changes in the political structure or the zeitgeist of the day and how we're operating. So with that, we'd love to have a good conversation about the policy, maybe some direction from you guys as it relates to where you want to go and if this fits. or if there's some specific issues, you might say, hey, I really believe in this, or I don't believe in that. We can take that format, but in this case, this is kind of where we're going as an operation. And just the other side of it too, it's very broad-based. I know we touch on some things, but as a result of this, I think there's some things that came out too as it relates to kind of our vision statement, so to speak, right? When you look at, and I think that's probably next conversation that we need to have is that, what are we doing, why we're doing it, right? Is it green hydrogen is key, right? We want to do green hydrogen. So having some good core values identified as relates to our purpose and role, I think is going to be valuable for this board to get engaged with as well. And I think that we're looking to do that in the future.
First, we'll take a speaker card, just get that out of the way.
Okay.
Is there any speakers in Lancaster?
We have no requests to speak.
Okay, and I don't believe I have any speaker cards here. So if the board want to move forward with discussion. I'll just throw it out there. I mean,
Yeah.
within this green energy, there's a lot of intricacies within each thing. I mean, one project could have a lot of beneficial things at the same kind could hurt us, so to speak. So, I mean, this is kind of, I guess if you just put in a framework and then work within that framework, but I could see a lot of different things popping up that could go both ways for us. So I just wanted to know, like, something that maybe affect, like, for a city within the membership, how it could affect them before we make a decision on opposing or supporting.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the notification process is when and it's in my case, so this is kind of interesting because we're working for a city and doing some of the electric work, and you deal with that too some of the times with your public utility. We do a lot of these things, right? We're engaging in the regulatory process on a regular basis, so it becomes very difficult to say, hey, let's have a council meeting every time we need to take a regulatory hearing. And the same thing with this board, we do it once a month. It's very difficult to take those stances. But we have a little more time with this group, right? Because we're not doing hundreds of them a month, right? We're doing one or two every 6 months. And we're not in the business of supporting legislation or opposing things, right? We're in the business of aggregating demand. So, from a staff perspective, we had the opportunity to look back and say, okay, let's be more timely on this and then focused on this, so we have that opportunity to communicate to you. And because there are some intricacies in that, right? Where you might say, this project or this something causes this to be good for us. At the same token, that something might be bad for us, which is there's some intricacies in that we need to understand and communicate about. Because in some cases, these are not very cut and dry. Some of them are, but some of them are not very cut and dry. That notification and that conversation is going to be very important in the process.
Usually when when you submit these, how long of a time frame they usually give you from when they request something and then they actually take action?
Yeah, so on the regulatory process, it's a very long process. So if it's a hearing, a rate setting or something, I'm going back to my energy days, there's a 6-8 month process that you can either start and pull back from. On a legislative process, sometimes these are going to be quick, right? If you're amending a piece of legislation, which you guys all know that you have a legislation that's been tracking for 6 months, and the last week something happens. So most of the time, last week something happens. So then it may be quick action. We also gauge kind of our relevance, like as staff in there as well. Sometimes where we kind of say, is our voice going to impact it, right? And what does our voice matter? Right? Sometimes our voice matters to say, hey, we're here, we're at the table, don't forget us. In some case, our voice might be, hey, you're the expert, how does it fit with you? In some case, nobody cares, right? Who's first, why, who are these people, why do they care, why do they have an influence? So, we got to balance that as well in that structure, which is a very, very complex process and more, I guess, art than science.
And what's usually the time frame on the notification process from the time it goes out to the time it would actually be sent in?
Yeah, these are public processes. There's a lot of time.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what's key. In some of the cases when you're doing, there are a lot of volume of them, yeah, it becomes redundant. And like, picture a city, for example, you know who your constituents are. They're all your citizens. So you're kind of aligned with your council and their voters. In this case, we have multiple stakeholders, as Jack mentioned, that are lateral and vertical and everywhere else. So it needs to be a little more thoughtful than we're representing our citizens, right? It is understood. We have time. These are public processes typically.
Just as a point of clarification, so the announcement equals our way, like process to decision making. So basically, you guys are just gonna let us know for one or two, whatever, for whatever instance, but we don't have a decision making process in terms of we get to also vote or decide whether we want to support X policy or not, or how to get involved or not.
Yeah, no, you do
Or
have,
maybe,
yeah.
or maybe clarify a little bit of the decision-making process.
Right. So there are some things that if they're simple and straightforward and need to move quickly, absolutely. Like we can move quickly, and then we have this authority kind of understanding with you guys. If there are things that are very complex and very maybe controversial, right, then absolutely we would bring those forward to you. That those wouldn't be a decision we would make alone. And depending on what constituent there may be, you guys do have that authority to say, yes, we want to take that position, or no, we want to take that position. At the same token, I have certain authorities to do the same, right? But obviously with notification and with a policy guidance from you, right?
So I have a couple of overarching points that I'd like to discuss. And the very first one is that I would like FPH2 to be an organization that makes this a very minor part of what we are doing, okay? And that we don't spend much time playing in the politics and policy world, but rather focus our attention on making deals, focus our attention on enabling the market, which is the whole reason that I think we should exist. And if we start to become, like involved in every kind of proceeding and everything like that, I think that's a very big waste of our time and our talent and our opportunity, which is to use existing law to do something that changes the market. Okay, so this would, and maybe we can even add to the policy statements kind of an overarching thing that says, FPH2 will attempt in most instances to remain an outside, not get involved, not become a party to these proceedings, okay? And to focus our attention on enabling the market through the existing authority we have. Okay, something like that.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, yes.
Yeah, I know.
But in an overregulated state like California, unfortunately, you have to stay on top of these things because people love to take especially if this organization does very well, there's always outside influences.
Yes.
Just want to take a bite of what you got or change of what you got to benefit their own
Yes.
entities. So it's definitely have to stay on top of, and unfortunately in California, you got to fight for it sometimes.
Yes, okay, so that's one overarching idea that I'd like to see, maybe even included somehow in the statement, in the policy statement. Auda asked also the question about notification, and even though the proceedings that FPH2 has, not all of them have been proceedings. Some of them have been, let's say, a governor's office presentation and asking for feedback. And I can't remember the timeline on that. That was much shorter, though, than the typical CPUC proceeding. But I was surprised that we jumped in on a couple of things. And this notification would have been very helpful for me because other people that I work with and our other relationships were affected by that. And then we jumped in, and I'm like, I didn't even know we jumped in first. That was embarrassing. And then secondly, I may have had an opinion regarding that I would have liked to share before we jumped in. Okay, and so this aspect of the policy statement of how we notify board members and have a discussion with board members is important to me, and I'm glad you're bringing it up. And then I'd like to figure out how we can actually have some communication that is consistent with the Brown Act and everything that would be able to take place. Okay.
Yep. Understood.
So it is important to remember that the board's job is to set policy and then It's the job of staff to then implement that policy. So what is before you
Yes.
today is that policy, that overarching statement. If you want to modify, amend, change it, that's great.
Yeah.
But then it's on staff to implement.
Yeah.
And maybe further down the road, we maybe even consider an ad hoc committee specifically on these, maybe people
Yes.
that are more well-informed than others. Maybe down the road, something we could discuss, but something to think about.
Yeah.
I'll say that's a really good idea because even though our goal is not to participate in all the procedures that the PUC or with the regulatory or, there's so many other agencies, but a lot of these decisions are going to affect us. And the opportunity that we might have to serve, and to open up more of the market. So I agree that we can't just stay silo and not participate, not say anything, because a lot of other things affect labor, for example. So a lot of stuff that they go out there in Sacramento negotiate that will affect us too, So I think maybe thinking about, I would support the idea of maybe some sort of subcommittee in the future.
I think I understand what you're saying in terms of us not getting bogged down with process, but I think we have to be very vigilant of what's going on in, at the state level and other levels where we have to at least be on a watch. Because if we miss something and it affects us, we didn't have the opportunity to engage, shame on us then. So I think it's important to have the balance of this policy to be able to be vigilant. But yes, on the other hand, I agree, we don't want to get bogged down with it and be bureaucratic about it either.
And just to clarify on that, we do have a regulatory attorney that does advise us. And so he does keep an eye on these things as they come forward. And then we do have monitoring. But as Aura said, we don't have to react, right? We don't have to react to everything, but we do have to monitor, right? It's a nice balance. But when it's time to react, then it's, of course, let's have that conversation.
I also had, I thank you as staff for sharing with us this draft of the policy statements. And we did have a chance to actually review some of those, and I suggested some revisions, which I think I already see in the statement, so I appreciate that. And I think that, we do have to stand up for our rights, okay? And to protect our authority to keep doing this, okay? But I also there is such a we have a small possible role and a big possible role in something that's super small right now, which is a hydrogen ecosystem. The hydrogen ecosystem is so tiny that anyone who wants to contribute positively in this space, I think we got to try to figure out a way to work with. Okay, so I think also our intentions in establishing these policies are to work with, and maybe this is the vertical thing you're talking about, right? Work with those who have authority that's different than ours, like the regulated utilities, like the state Department of General Services, which we can't do the stuff they can do. And we need stuff that DGS can do, and stuff that the regulated utilities can do, and stuff that the private sector can do. And we should try to have our policy statement reflect, we want to work with them as much as possible for the ecosystem to grow. I think it's in there already, but I just wanted to state this clearly because, gosh, the hydrogen community is so small and it needs to grow a lot. And I want to be a part of the system that enables it to grow and across all of these dimensions, okay? Across all of these dimensions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, especially I think what kind of Jack is getting at is that, yes, we want to support every single thing. Maybe there's something little inside that thing we don't really like or have an issue with. And the big pictures you can't support. Yes, I like it, but this part I don't really like. It's people when they look at it, they say yes, no, or nothing. It's kind of not like, yeah, kind of, I like to support it. It's either yes or no. It's kind of cut and dry when they look at down the list. Who's the yes, who's the no's? So
Yeah.
it's tough. But yeah, I 100% agree. Less is more. So, I mean, we have a bigger voice when, hey, whoa, FPH2 is supporting this. They don't support a lot of things. So that says a lot about, that support or in the, not supporting it says a lot more the less we do.
Yeah.
So is there anybody else has any additional comments? Do we want to look at this more, or something we want to bring back, or?
So, I mean, we definitely want to talk more about how we could be notified and what we would be able to do as board members to maybe influence it if we want to and things like this. And to tell you what we think are major challenges and why we should or should not do something like this or so. Because there should be some kind of a discussion about that. Again, I don't think it belongs in the policy. I think that I've already heard and understand that we don't have a policy for doing that. But what can we do for communication?
Maybe I'll turn it over to Allison. Allison, from an ad hoc committee perspective, if they identified, and I don't know that we need, it's not agendized, so we can't do it today.
Yeah.
An opportunity to have an ad hoc committee might be a better, more structured way to have that communication, maybe a legislative and regulatory ad hoc committee, maybe two of you. Is that, Allison, can you give me feedback on the legalities associated with that?
Yeah, so if we set up an ad hoc committee, and we have the board take action on that, we would need to agendize it, and that committee would then be subject to the Brown Act. If, however, we have the chairman, using the chairman's powers, appoint a committee, an ad hoc committee, it is not subject to the Brown Act, and we do not have to agendize it. So what we may do, if that is something that you would like to have that feedback, Jason, then you could ask the chairman when you next speak with him to appoint an ad hoc committee, and folks who were interested in being identified for that committee could send an email to Jason.
Maybe I'll look at that. I'll have the conversation with the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll make it more formal.
Okay, and from my perspective, it sounds like it would be preferential for us to have the chairman appointed rather than us to try to present
Yeah, he has,
that.
pretty much has to.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thank you for that, Allison.
Happy to help.
How about on the policy, so this item in particular, how do we feel about the policy itself as written? Do we want to bring some changes and bring it back, or?
Yeah, again, from my perspective, I saw the policy, I made some suggestions, and I would like to take one final look at it before, and I'm glad it was removed from the consent calendar. If it was on the consent calendar, I would have asked to have it removed. So maybe someone else already did that, because I do want to look at it a while and maybe get another chance to provide feedback before I would like to have it approved.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be wise to maybe even hold off a few meetings until this ad hoc committee is formed, and they can really take a look at disseminating what the statement is and some of the feedback, and then we can.
So we're looking at a motion to table this, or?
Yeah, well,
We have to
Allison,
take action on this?
Allison, how many people could we have on the ad hoc?
One less than a quorum.
Okay. 3. Okay. So, but the ad hoc would, okay. I'm just thinking, would the ad hoc would help in make decisions and help craft this? Is that what we're thinking? Or
Well,
is,
there's no, I mean, there's certain authorities that I have to do,
Right.
and so it would be the advisement.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that ad hoc committee could say, I advise it going to the full board, right? Then the full board has the authority to make the decision. So I can tell you, with Jack's feedback, we're going to be doing this fewer and fewer often. This is not going to be a regular burden on you guys. So just trust me.
I hope so.
This is not going to be a weekly ad hoc committee. We got the message.
Okay, thank you.
So let's, if you want to table it, look at it, and then we can have an ad hoc committee. But I can tell you, based on the direction I sense from the board, and obviously a little bit of my views too, we're an agency that needs to sell hydrogen and aggregate demand and get projects built. So I agree with that completely. But the same token, when those things pop up, which I don't think they do regularly, then we have this opportunity to create this, quote, ad hoc, right? It's not going to be meeting every week, and this isn't going to be a normal occurrence.
right. Okay, so we'll table this for now?
Let's table, let's have, if you guys want to make amendments, we'll table it, and we'll bring it back to the next board meeting, and see where we go.
So we need to make a motion to table this?
no.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right, moving on.
Member Peacock, now that they're moving on, it is appropriate for you to return to the dais if you'd like. I don't know if you can hear me.
Tanya,
Tanya, you can come back.
you can reach, it's 2:36. Tanya's returning. So moving on to item 6. Does the secretary normally announce the resolution? I don't remember if we do or not. No.
Necessary, no.
Okay. Alrighty. So item 6 here. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Good afternoon, board members. The item before you for item 6 is a resolution revising the First Public Hydrogen Authority regular meeting schedule and rescinding our previous resolution. The difference that we will be making in the resolution is location. So as you may have noted from our last couple of board meetings, we don't have a ton of participation in Lancaster as we do in industry. And so what we are recommending is that we remove that as a regular location. If we choose to have a meeting in Lancaster in the future, we can. We would need to plan for it and agendize for it. But this resolution would make industry our primary and only location for board meetings. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
We'll go ahead and take public comment real quick. Is there any public speakers in Lancaster?
We have no request to speak.
Okay, and I do not have any here. So I guess we can talk about this now is that if we wanted to go to Lancaster, we could do it. It would be just like a remote meeting. Like say if somebody was out of town, we could post it at that location if we wanted to.
If we had advance notice, yes,
Right.
we would need to ensure it's on the agenda, but we could have it as a location if we chose to.
And that would be 72 hours notice?
Allison, I'll let you jump in here.
For a regular meeting, it would be the 72 hours notice. Alternatively, as I will be discussing with you at the next board meeting, there have been some changes to the Brown Act recently that affect agencies like ours that might allow another method for attendance as well. So I will be doing a whole presentation for you next board meeting on the changes to the Brown Act, reminders on fiduciary obligations and conflicts of interest, and all of those things. So we'll be having a deep dive on that next meeting.
Any comments by the board? Everybody good with
I'm
the
sorry, we remain the same day. It's just location, it's gonna always be here.
Correct. It allows us to save some staff time, and instead of running 2 locations, we'll be able to centralize that one.
All right. So do we need a motion?
We need a motion.
Okay.
Motion to approve item 6, Board Member Medrano.
A second. Vasquez?
Have the roll call, please.
Board Member Brower,
Aye.
Board Member Madrano,
Aye.
Board Member Peacock,
Aye.
Board Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, looks like we have another staff report. Do we get a new CEO?
This is from, yeah, number
List
7.
of policies on, I wasn't sure which one was on consent.
Okay,
Alexis handles the policies. Great, thank you guys very much. Let me give you an update on what we've got going on. It's been a busy month.
I don't know if it's just me, but we can't hear you.
yeah, your mic is.
We can't hear you, Jason.
Can you hear me now?
There we go, now.
Yes.
There you
we
go.
can hear you.
So the procurement activity, just on what we've got going on from a procurement perspective, our transportation procurement has closed. We've selected 2 vendors for that, 2 partners that are very qualified to deliver fuel for us, which give us an opportunity as we get close to delivering fuel, which when we talk about the contracts that we'll be hopefully coming to you very soon, that we have partners in the availability to deliver that fuel. So this is very good news, very qualified partners. We are opening that RFP up again to allow for it to continue to stay open. So a lot of folks that came in and said, can we bid in now? We got the feedback as no, it's closed. So we're going to open it again for others who want to join into that effort. So that'll remain open so that others can join into that partnership.
Transportation one will remain open.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that is open, and it'll be opened again. And we have looking for other vendors to join us in our partnership as we progress. The state and arches. So since our last board meeting, you saw the state sent out a message regarding arches, and it's, I don't want to call it a dissolution, but they call it a suspension as a result of federal funds and some other things. So we have been engaging in a very positive way with the governor's office and those stakeholders that are part of that, what is arches, and looking forward to a really good collaboration with them. I think the opportunity, there's a couple things that happen in the marketplace. One, it's not good that we lost $1.2 billion. At the same token, there's a lot of the agencies that have momentum and that are moving forward now aren't waiting for $1.2 billion. They're realizing they need to start moving. So we have seen some momentum in that space, which is really good for them and for us, that we have some opportunities to make this move forward. So as a result of that, we'll be working on a webinar that is a statewide webinar in conjunction with the governor's office to move forward to get that momentum driving with First Public, and so those transit agencies have a location where we can start really aggregating demand, which is the activity that we've always talked about, and I think we have some real opportunity to start moving that ball forward. So we're excited about that. We're also working on the data center side, so we've got a couple stationary power efforts that we're continuing to move on. One is the data centers, which we've talked about. So we have a couple large data centers we're working with to not only looking at microgrid, solar, battery, green hydrogen, to actually power an off-grid data center and potentially grid connected as well. Our other stationary project we have is the event center that we've talked about in Lancaster, the Paris Center, that we're making progress on. So we hope to be breaking ground in the first quarter of next year on a hydrogen fuel cell microgrid that is going to be powering a facility in Lancaster and hopefully be the example of what we can do as it relates to stationary power demands. Along that too, we've got another RFP coming out probably Monday, which is for stationary power partners. So if you guys remember when we talked about the original business plan, the challenge we had with stationary power was the availability of affordable molecules. With our RFP and our partnerships we're developing right now, we have identified that there is available, reliable fuel in the marketplace once aggregated. So it's now time to start looking at those stationary power opportunities. We'll have examples with the data center. We'll have examples with the event center, the Paris Event Center, that we hopefully can replicate with our member cities and member agencies who want to do stationary power. We have working with the city of Shafter, which is probably be on your next board meeting to join. They have a very large industrial center that they're working on that we look to kind of power with hydrogen and energy and things of that nature. So we've got this momentum on the stationary power side too, which is very good. The communications and outreach, we sent out a press release. I think we got all really positive feedback from you about the local hydrogen remains strong. And I think we were serious about that as much as the federal government may not be leaning in. We still have many local agencies that are committed to this effort and the transition in this economy. So not only local agencies, but also the port authorities and other people in this space. Had some great announcements from the private sector, from the trucking industry with High Road and Nikola and Pacific Fuels, which was fantastic that they're moving forward as well. So there's still a lot of momentum, and I think that's the message that we sent, and that's the kind of the message we're living by. We had some really good metrics. We had 768 opens on those emails and 50% open rate, which is huge. We got placed in AP News, Yahoo Finance, Morningstar, so the message was getting out there, hopefully to a lot of people in the industry. And I talked about the next steps on the microgrid and the transit agency, so I covered all those already, but we're actively engaged and moving forward. We're really excited. We hope to be bringing you guys contracts to sign very soon. I can tell you that we're looking at a partners on the offtake side as well as partners on the supply side that is fantastic for us and fantastic for the industry. It really is going to kick off the first aggregation that is immediate, but it's also a sign that it works, that as we progress and other agencies get involved, that working together is the solution. And collaboratively becoming a buying network is going to have an impact on price and availability. So we're really excited about that, and we hope to be coming to you that soon. So it's very good news. That's all I have. I'd answer any questions.
So let me just note a couple of things, if you don't mind. First, on arches, I think that officially they call it a pause.
Sorry.
Because the LLC still exists and it still has the mission that they want to accomplish. It will not be proceeding with any of its business, okay, at this moment, and will not have regular board meetings and everything else, okay? Won't pay staff, okay? So it is completely paused for now. Secondly, there has been some work that has been accomplished at Arches, and I would say in particular involving DGS. And I wonder about that being leveraged and or still proceeding, even without Arches at all, and whether or not we could support or even use some of what DGS has been able to do. I don't know if this is the case, but there may be some, for example, state end uses, or even, let's say, Metropolitan Transit Agency end uses that want to buy hydrogen from DGS, and maybe we could help. I don't know. I have no idea if this is possible, but again, I think this collaborative, if there's been work done that is good and helpful and consistent with our mission, let's not throw it away if it's possible. Okay, because I've been hearing these things from some of the other entities that we are working with. You know, they were planning on buying it from DGS. Okay, what do they do next? Maybe they still do that. Maybe they now say do something with FPH2. That's different. I don't know. Okay, so just a couple of things there, mainly associated with Arches and its pause. Okay, because some of those things I know were going on, and I thought might be also complementary and positive.
Yeah, I would like to add, I would like to maybe ask, so what's the relationship with Arches now and DWP? I know that they had a very strong partnership, and we have acted very cautiously, respecting the fact that, they were kind of pursuing that relationship. And, I have a close relationship with DWP, obviously, as a former commissioner. And I was also being mindful of how approach bringing us together. And I wonder if this is a good time to kind of really spark that conversation, because they're probably, Los Angeles was supposed to be one of those big, hydrogen hubs. I think you probably have more information about that too. But so then is that something that we have thought about? Maybe Lorraine, you might have some idea of how to proceed. What are your thoughts on how are we gonna maybe move forward as we see this transition from Arches?
Sure, and it's a very good question, board member. Thank you for asking it. First of all, we are very excited to see that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power Commission advanced the approvals of Scattergood, and the Los Angeles City Council advanced the approvals of Scattergood. Board member Medrano and I participated in person to support that action and encourage the commission in a public setting to move forward with their investment in hydrogen equipment for a renewable hydrogen repower. What I would say, and maybe I can answer your question and address one of board member Brower's points regarding Arches. Since the inception of Arches, the city of Lancaster, and then when First Public Hydrogen was formed, we've been committed to their success. We were very disappointed that the 1.2 billion didn't come to California, but we have publicly and privately communicated to GoBiz and to the governor's office that we're going to do what we can as an authority to advance anything that we can advance that was developed under Arches, whether it was with us or independently, and support especially those partners who are building projects and creating jobs and new supply. With respect to DWP, what they're doing is one of the most important and potentially disruptive in a positive way, market drivers for hydrogen in the Los Angeles region because they're making a commitment to renewable hydrogen, which sends a market signal to developers who are in Los Angeles County and beyond that there is a future visibility to sell their product. And so we stand ready to facilitate that. What I've told our team as we look at this opportunity is that we have to do everything we can because we're a public agency and they're a public agency and we're very mindful of their procurement cycles. We'll do everything that we can to respect their procurement cycle and respond appropriately as they advance the opportunities for our aggregated supply to potentially compete to provide service and fuel for that facility. So I think you make a great point. It's an important advancement. It's going to create a lot more momentum, and we'll support it in the appropriate manner. And then Dr. Brower, you had mentioned about ARCHES and Department of General Services. I think at this point, it's more of an idea than something that's fully executable. And what we've commuted to the folks who have reached out to us at the governor's office level is to the extent that there is an appetite and there's statutory authority to move forward with collaboration with First Public Hydrogen Authority, we will absolutely do that. And to the extent that it helps drive hydrogen adoption and transportation and the power sector or other non-traditional sectors to grow the pie for hydrogen, especially renewable hydrogen, we will support that. But from our early research and our early conversations, I think it's unclear exactly what DGS's authority to do that is. So we want to give them the runway to figure that out and to support them when they're ready to advance anything with us. In the meantime, we're going to keep running. We are going to meet with every transit agency, every power producer, anybody who's interested in renewable hydrogen, and we're going to match them up with our suppliers because we have a much shorter time frame for these suppliers to qualify for the ITC and the PTC and to advance meaningful projects in the state of California. And I will say that with all of this happening, it's a very, very dynamic market space for hydrogen. We're the second largest hydrogen economy in the US. I think we're going to grow that and we're going to contribute to growing that. But we have to also, with all these stakeholders, whether they're policy stakeholders or in the hydrogen economy, we have to, maintain our commitment to First Hydrogen Public Authority to make sure that we succeed and we succeed in a strong manner.
And just a side note, not just DWP, and Lorraine touched on it a little bit too. This is the opportunity is to reach out again, right? I think a lot of people, at least the couple we've reached out to since the announcement, have been, oh, well, what do we do now, right? And I think the answer is right now we've got to take care of ourselves. And when you look at ourselves, when we look at local government specifically, when we talk about who these agencies using this fuel is, they're local governments. So we have identified and designed a system, I think, that works very well with those local governments to accomplish it without a windfall of funds coming from above, right? As the reality is these agencies have buses on order that are going to be delivered. They have fuel systems that are built and being designed, and they need fuel. And so we stand at the ready to help them kind of self-design and self-implement. So we're ready to do that. And that's the message we're sending to everybody.
Well, and let me say that I appreciate you, Board Member Medrano, and Lorraine for speaking out at that hearing and representing First Public Hydrogen in a way that I think is very positive for the hydrogen community. This is a project that the whole world is looking at, not just the United States. And it's one of those ways that a very large amount of low-cost hydrogen could be achieved and could affect the market. The whole market in this whole area could be affected by just that one project and commitment to doing this. And they already have this experience that I think will grow in Utah for doing these things. So it's like, this is one of the most important hydrogen projects in the world right now. So I was pleased to see it unanimously approved. So cool.
And Board Member Brower, I mean, there is one constraint that we hope gets resolved in the coming year, and that's the Energy Commission qualification for renewable hydrogen deployment in the power sector. I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to touch on that.
Could you explain that a little further? I know about it, but I don't really know it very well. So,
I handed it back to you, but sure.
oh gosh.
This is one area we haven't gotten involved, but we do have resources who are tracking this, and we try to stay close to it through the trade associations. For the California hydrogen economy to grow beyond the traditional uses, refining and other heavy industry, and through in mobility, and for these solar plus electrolysis projects to really achieve their full potential, use in the power sector is important. And we have regulations that are part of the RPS framework that are developed at the Energy Commission that tell the market what's allowable, what you can use. And at the moment, there's confusion and there's needs clarification that renewable hydrogen, especially green electrolytic hydrogen that's under development, can be used at a scattergood or at another power plant. And so we're very hopeful that going into 2026, and we won't jump in, Board Member Brower, but we hope that others will jump in.
Thank you.
And we will certainly make our position clear, but we do hope that those get resolved in a manner that supports a broader market for renewable hydrogen, because at the moment it's unclear and that market signal needs to be cleared up.
Is it to qualify for RPS? Is that the idea? Okay, yeah. So I know all about this, and of course,
Of course you do.
this is a logical and technically valid use of renewable hydrogen in power to meet an RPS target. Absolutely, it should be. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other piece of it is that there are microgrids currently that are being developed considering the use of renewable hydrogen, and they're very important from a resource adequacy perspective for the grid that needs more energy capacity.
Yeah.
But the PUC a few years ago considered a green renewable adequacy. It's called RA product. And so we're hoping that the PUC will again consider a green RA product so that it creates yet another market for renewable hydrogen in the power sector and sends a signal that California is a place where we can incent new projects and new infrastructure and new jobs.
I think RA is a very good market for renewable hydrogen. If you think about the ability to establish resilience, capacity, and in certain parts of the grid and everything, the RA market might be the very best one. It could become very valuable contribution. Or you?
I was just going to add back to the RPS conversation briefly that currently for the RPS, hydrogen that goes through a fuel cell to create electricity is RPS eligible. It's just hydrogen in a combustion turbine scenario. So that's the technicality that needs to be clarified in order for renewable hydrogen to have broader market opportunities. So, and fuel cell currently can do it.
Thank you, Board Member.
I just wanted to touch up on to go back to transportation for a second. You said we had locked in those two entities that we're looking to contract with. Was that going to cover the current demand, or is that going to cover the projected demand?
Well, potentially both, right? And the current demand that we're talking about, the recent contracts, we're working with the vendor that delivers too. So there's those opportunities. When we talk about the next level of demand, or exceeding other demands, those are going to be kind of on call, and allowing us to work on the development of that. Because as we move forward with the aggregation, we're going to start getting other demands that are exceeding our existing supply, then we start having these conversations about, and those transportation services take time too, building the trucks, those types of things. So this is stuff we're starting now in anticipation for a 2027 and 28 demand.
Just curious, any of the trucking companies, are they working on any hydrogen vehicles, transport vehicles?
So that was some of the good news, and some of the other efforts is the High Road, which is, I think, just hit the media recently, purchased Nikola out of, I'm paraphrasing what I read online. I'm not acting like an expert. Purchased Nikola, which then frees up some vehicles to hit the market. And then also partnered with some vendors in specific clean fuels, who is working on some stations with another energy producer. So that market is moving forward as well, which I think is a good signal to the market that, those trucks are going to be available. Hyundai's still moving forward. Nikola being in the mix again is really positive news for the industry.
I agree that Nikola trucks being out there and available, and the technology and all the advancement, because they had a lot of advancements, not being lost is great. It's really great for our hydrogen community. I heard, on the other hand, and I don't know if this is true, that carrying a liquid hydrogen truck behind a Nikola semi is not possible because it will exceed the weight that is allowed in California. I don't know if this is true or not, but so I'm just wondering about the transport options that are available for Nikola and how they can move. Maybe they have to move a 3/4 full truck or something. I don't know.
Familiar.
I'm
I
not-
know when
yeah.
you talk to the folks in that industry, weight has a problem. Weight is an issue.
Weight is an issue, yeah.
And I'm not an expert to qualify, but I hear it amongst the people
Yeah.
talking. Yeah.
Can I also ask about any provisions that you have made or contract terms that you have inserted for the venting of hydrogen during the transport and transfer operations? Do you have anything like that we could?
We have
Jeff,
offered.
we have to be a little bit careful about discussing current negotiation
Okay.
and what's in the fuel
Okay.
supply agreements. But what I will say is it's absolutely an issue across the industry for mobility. And we're going to look to you and others because of your deep expertise. It's really something that the transit agencies are trying to improve, and they're working with their supply partners and their midstream
Yes.
transportation partners. But for as far as terms and conditions for current negotiations, unfortunately, we can't share those.
Okay, but just then I'd like to just make the point that it would be a very significant contribution, positive contribution that we can make, I think, to pay attention to this and to maybe do something about it. So, thank you.
We provide your services freely, regularly.
Okay.
We offer you up, Board Member Brower.
Gosh.
We full throttle agree and had
Okay.
this conversation as a team earlier this week, and in 2026 Q1, we look forward to hosting as First Public Hydrogen Authority, a conversation around that and collaborating with some of our transit agency partners.
Great. Thank you.
And and if Arches has any work, body of work, you would know more than we would in this regard. We would love to open it up to them as well.
I was not a part of any Arches work in this regard, but and I don't know about it. The work that we have done has been separate from Arches, so.
And it's the work that you have done is incredible. So we're looking forward to hopefully sharing some of that more broadly.
Thank you.
Alrighty, there's no further discussion. Allison, do we actually need public comment on this? So we're not taking any kind of action.
It wouldn't hurt to just quickly see if there's any.
Okay.
I don't see anyone in Lancaster, but maybe we can get just a quick confirmation there's nobody there.
We have no request in Lancaster.
Okay, and nothing here. Alrighty. So I got update received. Moving on to item number 8. We have an update from Allison.
Yes, just I was going to announce now, but I already said it. I'm going to be giving you an update and refresher on duties and responsibilities as public officials, and some updates to the law affecting public agencies like First Public, some changes to the Brown Act and the like, and that'll be coming up in December.
And we'll move on to general public comment. I don't think we have anybody in Lancaster unless somebody ran in there.
We have no request to speak.
Okay. Is there anybody here in City of Industry that would like to speak on behalf of public comment? No? All righty. We'll move on to board member questions, comments, reports. Maybe, looks like we have a report from Aura from the COP.
Yes. So I just returned from the COP, COP 30 this year. It took place in Brazil, in Belém, which is a small city close to the Amazon, or in the middle of the Amazon. I just want to preface this conversation by saying that the United States did not, for the first time, send a delegation to the COP. The COP stands by the Conference of Parties. So in order for you to be a party, you need to agree to an agreement. In this case, would have been the Paris Agreement, which happens a few years ago. All the countries agree that we were going to tackle climate change, we were going to lower emissions, we were going to figure out a way where this was benefiting, frontline communities and also at the same time benefiting the economy. But this year, our current administration didn't, they took us out of the Paris Agreement, unfortunately. So we didn't have an official delegation a lot of times, and Tanya has been part of these delegations in the past. So I was able to go with a sub-delegation. And I also like to share that Governor Newsom led one of the sub-delegations. He was very active, bringing a lot of the other states, like state of New Mexico, a couple of other, like New York, like a lot of different states came together to kind of represent. And this is for me when it became very clear that our work was so important at a global stage, believe it or not. That the maybe the little that we think we're doing here, it has such a huge global impact. Because when I heard other people talk about all the things that are happening in California, that are happening around the country, it really gave me a sense that our, our reach has such a big impact. So I wanted just to preface, my report by saying that this is, what's going on in the world of the conference and global conferences around climate change. This year was more about implementation. So the different countries needed to come with their plan about how they were gonna, get to certain goals. So this was being negotiated right now. There's also a fund that is being negotiated, so funding to do a lot of, different projects. And as it pertains to keeping now the earth at a certain heat level, because right now we're not tackling climate change, we're basically mitigating the effects of of climate change. So in terms of renewable hydrogen engagement, I have to say that there's so much opportunity because it's a very small industry, but it's weaving in all the conversations. Because people are trying to figure it out. What are we going to do with aviation? What are we going to do with big shipping? Was a big one that I was not very familiar with, and I learned a lot at COP. I sat in a few conversations and talks and such, and a lot of people looking into hydrogen to imagine those big ships that have big containers that are coming from other countries and going, and so how are we going to do that? Places like in the ports, how are we going to make ports cleaner, less polluted for the areas where they're, located. And this year, there was an establishment of the Green Hydrogen Task Force, which is not a treaty body, so you don't have to be part of the treaty. Anybody, like including us, can be. But it has a broader umbrella of the 24/7 carbon-free energy, which is the CFE. And the task force is led by the Council of Engineers for Energy Transition. I don't know if you guys know that. I thought maybe you might know.
I know about it. I've never participated in any meetings or
So
anything,
they're very
yeah.
they're very active, and also by the Sustainable Energy for All, which is the SE for all. So the goal of the task force is to accelerate green hydrogen deployment in the global, world. So, who knows? Maybe, also guide policy, investment, and technology collaboration. So yeah, these are some of the things that I saw there. Some of the things as it pertains to our board that I think are important is that there are U.S. federal, in the absence of the federal government being there, the subnationals were very strong, and the board can maybe get more involved in that sense at the state level, especially now that we're starting to forge more of a relationship with the state level, and rather than waiting for the federal level to do that, so that we have a big opportunity. For the elected officials in the room, I was hoping that also Mayor Perez was going to be here. There is an association called Climate Mayors. I think I shared it with some of you before, where you can, sign up to a pledge and become part of the Climate Mayors. And there's been very big conversations around the Climate Mayors and green hydrogen. They had another separate meeting in a subnational delegation and a network in not Sao Paulo, but the other city, Ipanema,
Rio.
Rio, there you go. In Rio. In Rio, they met in Rio, so all the climate mayors, the elected officials were there, and they were kind of like fostering this like collaboration.
And it's not as hot as Belém.
No, and it's not as Belém, and it has more infrastructure, yeah. And so, maybe for the next months, we should monitor these, and I would like to invite, some of you that are interested. I know that you have been part of the CUPs before. Next year, I believe it's going to be somewhere in Turkey. And maybe we can start preparing so that we can maybe, I don't know, create a proof case of what we're doing and really present it to the global stage. That would be pretty cool. To show the world, what we're doing, how we partnered up with labor, creating green jobs, like doing all these, really interesting things. We'll see how the next year, develop, and then just like continue reflecting on our commitment to, to continue this work with, with a global emphasis. So I put together some sort of report. If you guys, I can share it around. I'll send it, and maybe they can put it in the next minutes. But if you want to chat more, just let me know. Thank you. Any questions? Anybody curious?
I'm kind of curious. So I'm assuming almost every country, what kind of countries are pushing more hydrogen than others, or doing the most on the hydrogen sector?
I saw mostly Belgium, Brazil, very big on green hydrogen right now. They're in fact created in the task force that is a sub kind of committee that is Brazil and the European Union. So the European Union is looking very much into it. There was a lot of private sector people there too, showing their technology like boats and things. And, some of the places that had the most funding that at this CUP, they were the CUP was asking, come up with more funding so all these other countries can also participate in the transition. We're Saudi Arabia. They're not a big participant. But this time, and obviously China. In fact, in the past years, Europe and China has been the ones that are kind of muscling through the funding to a lot of these projects. Yeah. So like, I don't know if you guys know this, but in my other life, I'm leading a renewable energy solar project in the Gambia and in Liberia. And this is funded by the Canadian government. So, a lot of these governments kind of fund other places. So, you never know when it will be, I have a whole list of people that I need to reach out. I just got back on Monday. But I would love to see maybe Brazil might be a place that we can, connect to in terms of like green hydrogen. Who knows?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
And just please state your name for the record also.
My name's Will Crampton. I'm with Taverity. You just mentioned something about China, and I just want to mention that China has put development of hydrogen economy as one of the key factors in their 15th five-year plan. And it has been announced recently, and that is the channel through which battery development and solar and wind grew in the past. So they are now going pretty full force on hydrogen in China. And in 5 years or 8 years, if we're not successful, everyone will be like, oh, what happened? China lapped us, and China jumped ahead in hydrogen just like they did in solar and wind. And the only reason is because we backed off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my comment.
It's an additional reason why our federal government should reconsider investments in hydrogen, because it is a matter of our international competitiveness. And right now, I think, thank you very much, Aura, for representing the hydrogen community there, our California hydrogen community there, and even FPH2 there. I'm very, very proud that you went there and did this. But also, super interesting to see that Brazil is one of those nations. I do think you're right that has this better understanding of the broad energy community. One of the reasons they did is because of the oil shock of the 1970s, where they were tremendously impacted and decided to invest in ethanol. And they're the world leader in ethanol now. Now, they have the advantage of plenty of water, plenty of land, all this ability to actually, grow the sugar cane and to use the sugar cane for making the ethanol, and they've distributed it throughout their whole country. The whole country is, leading in ethanol. And then they also have ports that are interacting. I think especially interacting like with the Gulf Coast here in the United States, but then also Europe. And so they have these abilities to actually, I think, use the hydrogen vector and to interact with international markets in a way that's going to be pretty interesting in the future. And the guests that we had from Brazil recently too were highlighting this. We were talking mainly about green steel, but they were talking also about exporting energy. Okay, and you can export energy in the form of steel even, which is kind of interesting. Right, because you need so much energy to make the steel, and then if you transport the steel from here to there, it's like moving energy. Okay. Anyways, some very exciting things there. So thank you very much. I had one other topic that I wanted to ask about. Shoot. Okay, maybe it'll come back to me later.
I'll ask my question in the meantime. So thank you very much for your report, Aura. It was, wondering if you heard much discussion of ammonia for fertilizer?
Not for fertilizer, but for shipping.
For shipping, but not for fertilizer.
Not for fertilizer. There was a pavilion, agricultural pavilion. A lot of those pavilions were mostly led by the African nations, which was interesting to me because I thought Brazil was also a very agricultural, country. Well, and any other, country. But mostly I heard ammonia for shipping, which was a very much surprise to me, And I went to tour one of the ships that actually is with a partnership with a company in California. And how they're gonna produce power through ammonia and use hydrogen as a backup. I hope that eventually shipping will not rely on diesel, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was
I remember.
hot and steamy.
I remember the other topic, and that is that and it's because of your work in some of the developing countries, okay? Because I do think there is an opportunity through primary renewable energy and hydrogen to actually more cheaply introduce resilient and reliable power that can build economies. Okay, so, and to me, this is a goal that I hope we could out facilitate, right? If we figure out how to aggregate hydrogen production and move it around here, we could also export hydrogen or hydrogen derivatives, and we could also help other places figure out how to actually use hydrogen as a means to introduce economic prosperity. When you start with no energy infrastructure, right? How do you do it cheaply? It's more expensive to actually, build an all-electric system than it would be mostly electric plus hydrogen. Okay, and then so you can see how this could actually make a big difference in developing world.
So Board Member Brower, is that a request for a future agenda item? Because I think that's the topic we're on the agenda. I hope you're understanding my gentle prodding now.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much. It was just a fascinating topic. Thank you. No, there's not a request for agenda item. Thank you very much.
He's just trying to save the world. All right. Does anybody have any other general comments or questions or a discussion? All right. Is there any requests for future agenda items? No. If not, we'll be adjourning the meeting. The next regular meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 18th, 2 p.m. only in the City of Industry.
Yeah.